Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to have a good old look at, well, some new cards that are coming around from, we know the deal at this stage. In Japan, it's going to be a bit of the old Super Electric Breaker. In the West, it's going to be Surging Sparks. Either way, we've got some new cards to talk about, and we're going to start off having a look at Skelidirge. And given that Skelidirge is a Stage 2 evolution of Fuecoco, you know that means I'm always going to be a little bit more excited and a little bit more interested in this than I might otherwise be. And yes, it is a Stage 2, and being a Stage 2 is awkward and all of that, completely understand. But, you know, Skelidirge. Yeah. So what do we got here from Skelidirge? Well, being a Stage 2, we got a decent amount of HP, and here we're sitting up at 180, which is frankly not too shabby. And we've got ourselves an ability. Prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks done to this Pokemon. And you know what? Yeah, that sounds pretty nice, ladies and gentlemen. That sounds pretty nice indeed. Because you see here, we've got a whole bunch of different things we can be doing. For instance, let's say your opponent comes out with a Roaring Moon, trying to get an instant one-hit KO and all of that. No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not working. You cannot be one-hit KO'd by Roaring Moon. If your opponent's trying to get rid of your energy-using attacks or trying to put special conditions on you or anything along those lines, this is not going to work. I like this. It's not necessarily a reason to play the card, but it is a very, very nice bonus if you're playing the card anyway. We then have, for 2 energy, Flare Recital, 60 damage, plus 20 more for each benched Pokemon, yours and your opponent's. But here's the thing. We live in a world right now where we have Area 0 Underdepths. And in a world where we have Area 0 Underdepths, both players can have 8 bench Pokemon. Now, if your opponent sees you playing Skelidirge, they may wish to not fill up their bench, which is a very sensible thing to do. However, theoretically here, there could be 16 bench Pokemon. Times by 20 is 320. Add 60 for the base is 380. Actually, if there's 14 bench Pokemon between both players, which is still a lot, I grant you, and you're playing Stage 2 here, so you're not going to have as many basics to potentially fill up, but let's just assume 14 bench Pokemon plus the 60 base here will do 340, which is the maximum amount of HP we've seen from any Pokemon so far. It will one-hit KO literally anything. Plus 180 HP is a decent amount of HP. Plus, you know what? Having this, preventing all effects of your opponent's attacks is really rather nice. It is a huge thing. Dragapult right now is a pretty big Pokemon. Well, dropping damage counters is an effect of an attack. So this, if it's sitting on the bench, cannot have damage counters dropped on by Dragapult or, in fact, anything else. The general categories here are instant KO, special conditions, energy removal, and damage counters. They're the general kind of things against which you will be protecting yourself. But you know what? Yeah. This seems good, ladies and gentlemen. This seems very, very good. I am once again put off by the fact that it is a Stage 2. Being a Stage 2 does make me a little bit sad, but I love the 180 HP. I love the ability that makes it immune to effects of your opponent's attacks. I like the fact that it's only a 2 energy attack, and we still do, for a tiny period, have Magma Basin in the format, where you can use that to accelerate energy. So the extra energy isn't even really an issue here. And we've got an attack that can do a huge amount of damage, or make your opponent control their bench, or you'll do a huge amount of damage, which is a very similar kind of thing. I like this. I'm a gigantic fan. I'm going to go ahead and give this one between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I do want to put it higher, but the fact is, it is a Stage 2 Pokemon right now. So, Stage 2 single prize Pokemon, they do have a rough time, but I still think there is a huge amount of potential here. I love me some Skelidirge. Maybe I'm blinded by the fact that it evolves from my boy Fuecoco. Who could ever know? But that's not the only reveal in town. We also have a pair of Paradox Pokemon, which is quite important because we've been getting these for a few sets now. And I'm always a little bit worried that they're just going to stop. And that actually we're going to stop getting all of these lovely Paradox Pokemon. But it seems like they are continuing for at least one more set. So let's take a look at Flutter Mane. I like Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane makes me happy. And what we've got here is a 90 HP ancient Pokemon. Nothing terribly special there. And for 2 energy, 70 damage, and the defending Pokemon's attacks deal 30 less damage during your opponent's next turn. It's fine, but it's not particularly great. It's not the reason you play the card. As a side note, even if your active Pokemon switches, that new active will take 30 less. That's quite important. But the reason we're playing this potentially is Bewildering Swap. 2 colorless energy, move all damage counters from one of your benched ancient Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. Yes. This I absolutely love. Because if we look at ancient Pokemon, we got stuff like Raging Bolt. And there's 2 things you need to know about Raging Bolt in this context. Firstly, it's got a pretty decent amount of HP as far as it goes. He's a big old boy, 240 to be specific. And secondly, it's a dragon Pokemon that has no weakness, which is generally what you can do to try and take out these Pokemon a little bit earlier. So, Raging Bolt will often not be KO'd. And this uses colorless energy. And if your opponent isn't one-hit KOing Raging Bolt, and I know a lot of decks can, but a lot of decks can't. If decks can't one-hit KO this, or don't one-hit KO this, you bring up Flutter Mane, move all the damage to your opponent's active, and you can even do this thing where, like, you're playing Raging Bolt, and, you know, you're going to be playing that with Teal Mask Ogapom. But if you don't play any other single prize Pokemon, you can basically have Flutter Mane as just a free Pokemon. Like, your opponent KOs it, but they've still got to KO free EXs as well. I'm not saying you're always going to be able to do that. There will, a lot of the time, be single prize Pokemon you want to play. But I'm saying that is an option here to essentially use this as a Pokemon that it doesn't count if you KO them. And like I say, it's colorless energy, so it can use anything, but it's still an ancient Pokemon, so things like Professor Sada, for instance, can pop an energy on here, and then you attach for your turn, and you're off and rolling, and it's not something you're going to build a deck around, but it's a basic Pokemon. It takes up 1 spot in your deck, it combos with stuff like Professor Sada, and if you play only 2 prize Pokemon on the board other than this, then in the matchups where you use this, it doesn't even matter if your opponent KOs it. And actually, there's a lot going on. I'm giving this 4 Wassies. I think it's a tech and nothing more. But I do think this is a very, very, very useful tech. This is one I have absolutely got my eye on. Oh, also, in the unlikely event that you can use Roaring Moon and not get KO'd the following turn, this is obviously brilliant. Roaring Moon gets an instant KO but does 200 to itself. It's left with 30 HP remaining. The chances of it surviving are very slim. But if it does survive, yeah, all of a sudden you get to move 200 damage to your opponent's active. That's pretty cool. I don't think that'll work very often, but, you know, I have to at least mention this, ladies and gentlemen. I have to at least mention it. And that leaves one more Pokemon about which we need to have a little bit of a chat here. We've got a new Iron Bundle. Yeah, someone at TPCI really likes Iron Bundle. Or Creatures, really, because they designed the card. Someone at Creatures, there we go, really likes Iron Bundle. Or then maybe someone at TPCI likes it as well. And what we've got here is 100 HP and free energy, 200 damage, sounds great. Minus 50 for each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. And I don't really like this one at all. I think the free energy is a lot. And sure, you can play this in Baxcalibur decks. But does anyone honestly think you're playing this in Baxcalibur decks? Because the problem is, like, we look at the good decks in the format right now, trying to find Pokemon with, low retreat costs that we can take advantage of. And, let's look at some of these. Regidrago, retreat cost of 3, you do 50 damage. Lugia, retreat cost of 2, you do 100 damage. Raging Bolt, retreat cost of 3, you do 50 damage. Charizard, retreat cost of 2, you do 100 damage. This is one to lock away for the future. If we ever get a situation where there are really good free retreat multiple prize Pokemon running around and seeing a bunch of play, yes, I love this. But the reality is, most of the time, and I'm not saying all the time, most of the time this is going to be bad. I'll give you one example where it does work, that's Mew EX. Mew EX has 0 retreat and 180 HP, so this will actually work beautifully against Mew, but are enough decks going to be playing Mew to make it worth playing this, bearing in mind it's a free energy Pokemon? That's my other thing. It's not just that a lot of the time it's not going to work, although that doesn't make me terribly happy. It's a fact that it's quite expensive, even in the situations where it does work, and that for me is a little bit of an issue. Certainly one that's got potential somewhere down the road in a different metagame, but between the free energy being awkward and the fact that most of the main Pokemon that are going to be in the active nowadays, you're not doing that much damage to, I do think this one is a pop it in the binder, wait for later card. I'm going to give it between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. And there we go. They're the new Pokemon. That's what you need to know. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about all of these in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.